Welcome to the Prophix Coffee Talk series focused on forecasting. My name is Nicole Deisman and I am a product marketing manager at Prophix. And today I'm co-presenting with my colleague Mark Bahar, a Prophix customer stories manager. Over the next 15 minutes, we certainly hope that you enjoy the Prophix Forecasting Coffee Talk. The world is messy, it's unpredictable, and the pace at which forces are shaping how business is conducted around the globe is increasing every day. In this dynamic business environment, companies have to constantly innovate and grow in order to survive. The need for information is high and it is constantly changing, adding another challenge to companies trying to stay ahead of encroaching competitors. On top of the harsh realities of the external business environment that companies are operating in, organizations also face internal pressures related to process, people, and infrastructure. In most organizations, the forecasting and planning processes are finance centralized. The issues do not stem around them being finance centralized. Rather, there tends to be challenges around limited ownership and accountability throughout the forecasting process, and limited collaboration with key business units that directly influence the forecast. Data aggregation is quite intense due to the manual and error-prone processes that are taking place. It also tends to be quite unstructured with no consistency to the process. In terms of people, generally the people challenges stem from bandwidth issues. They are struggling just to get numbers together. Analysis and forecasting is often an afterthought. In terms of infrastructure, some of the challenges organizations are experiencing are the result of an underdeveloped infrastructure. If you are working in a spreadsheet-based world, you most likely are dealing with data integrity and data control issues, and at times are unable to support the business needs. This visual is highlighting what I just mentioned, that forecasting and analysis is often an afterthought for organizations. By the time final approval of the budget takes place, the data you are looking at is out of date. Forecasting is becoming a necessary continuous part of the planning process. Given the challenges organizations are facing, companies like yourselves are looking for alternatives. How can they improve their processes, begin to forecast out into the future, and reap the benefits along the way? This first image is a screen capture from an Aberdeen Group report summarizing the benefits of organizations automating their financial planning, budgeting, and forecasting, all pointing to increased accuracy in planning and reforecasting. This screen capture highlights the top 2 challenges that organizations are experiencing in planning, budgeting, and forecasting. Really speaking to what I mentioned earlier, the challenges around process, people, and infrastructure. Lastly, Figure 4 speaks to how automating forecasting processes allows companies to reforecast as market conditions change, perform what-if scenarios as conditions change, and have real-time updates to financial metrics. This is all well and good, but how do you get to the point where you can actually begin to forecast? Where to start? Leading organizations are placing forecasting at the center of the management processes. Listed here are 9 best practices that organizations have followed to ensure that forecasting is a success within the organization. Let's walk through each of these and let me briefly explain the importance of each one. To share goals and objectives. Organizations first need to understand strategically how forecasting can benefit them. You need a framework of corporate goals for the year, and then you need to break these down into departmental objectives. Align these corporate goals and objectives. Generally, perimeters can be defined that help to measure this, such as key drivers and KPIs. Next, the communication of the strategy needs to occur, from executives down to line managers. The forecast is a form of sharing these goals and aligning them with departmental objectives. Facilitate collaboration. What we mean by this is you need forecast synchronization. For example, if sales wants to sell X number of units, manufacturing needs to be aware of this so their forecast can reflect this demand. Interdepartmental communication is key. You then need a consolidated review of the information to ensure the corporate targets are being met. Involve line managers. The ones closest to the front lines are the ones that can provide the most accurate, up-to-date, detailed information into the forecast process. They then begin to take ownership because they are intimately involved with the process. It becomes a win-win for everyone. Forecast appropriate level of detail. Depending on what you are forecasting, various levels of detail can be required. For example, you may want a summary level at corporate when doing financial forecasts, but at various department levels, for example, sales or operations, you will require very detailed forecasts. Certain situations require drilling down into detailed information. Include non-financial data. Non-financial data, such as win rates, product quality, customer satisfaction, can be leading indicators of what may be coming down the pipe. Organizations need to collect this information and create processes around this to control it. This information can also be the basis for driver-based planning, which can be quite unique based on the business and industry you may be operating in. Model multiple scenarios. Creating best, base, and worst case scenarios tend to reflect more closely what is going on in the business and become a significant factor when making intelligent business decisions. Keep it current, keep it relevant. Regular reforecasting and continuous planning, i.e. rolling forecasts, are vital. Factors change way too quickly, and these changes need to be reflected in company plans. Track performance. Again, it's all well and good to forecast, but unless you're tracking performance and using this information in reports based on actual to forecast comparisons, it's difficult to make sound business decisions based on this information. It's also important to look at industry benchmarks and measure your forecast against those. And lastly, make it easy. Make it intuitive. Have plans that the system will use to automate the collection of forecast data. It is possible to take the labor intensity out of it. So how to do this? Many times organizations need to look at the tool that is being used for planning in their organization. Many times it is spreadsheets. While spreadsheets are a good general purpose software tool, an excellent self-service personal productivity tool, it can become a bottleneck when trying to ensure successful forecasting is achieved by following the best practices just mentioned. And while technology alone will not guarantee successful forecasting is established, it certainly can be an enabler to launch an overall framework for how forecasting can fit within the management of the business. Because you're working with a single source of information with fully interactive data analysis, it becomes very logical to link corporate strategy to tactical forecasts. You can easily measure if the corporate goals are being met through looking at key business drivers. And facilitating collaboration, generally there is an integrated workflow component that simplifies this collaboration between departments and automates data aggregation so consolidated reviews are possible. And involving line managers, it becomes very easy to involve line managers with multiple deployment options available. Prophix offers a level of familiarity with a user-friendly Excel-like look and feel with security built in. It becomes very scalable across the organization. Forecast appropriate level of detail include non-financial data. The different types of forecasting, financial forecasting, operational forecasting, top-down, bottom-up, driver-based, reforecast, multi-year, rolling forecast, the possibilities are really endless with Prophix. And including non-financial data, KPI analysis and driver-based planning can become an integral part of the forecasting process. With a single source of data and the ability to create robust benchmarking reports and sophisticated driver-based plans, all requirements can be met. Model multiple scenarios and keep it current, keep it relevant. Unlimited forecast scenarios provide the opportunity to create best, base, and worst case forecast scenarios. With automated version management and data aggregation, accurate, timely forecasts are available. And you can keep it current and you can keep it regular. Regular reforecasting and continuous planning, i.e. rolling forecasts, are key. Because of the automation and streamlining capabilities, time is spent on analyzing data instead of manipulating it. Prophix applications make it easy. Make it intuitive. Leverage the familiarity of spreadsheets and have templates that a system would use to automate the collection of forecast data. It is possible to take the labor intensity out of it. Prophix has a look and feel of Excel, which offers a familiar environment to users, but it contains the security, scalability, accessibility, and collaboration, features that are required to make forecasting a successful enterprise-wide planning process. Track performance and distribute it out. Prophix's integrated CPM system can create scorecards, dashboards, exception reports of the forecast, and other graphical depictions of performance, on top of creating variance reports comparing actual to forecast to measure and track performance. You can send this information out to key stakeholders on demand or through the scheduling of the forecast to go out at a certain time of day. They can be exported out of the solution using PowerPoint, Word, Excel, or PDF. And enjoy the results. With Prophix forecasting, you will enjoy the results from an automated and streamlined financial processes. Companies tend to experience a more streamlined and timely process, and accountability and ownership is there adherence to guidelines and targets, and accurate, consistent information. What you have is a forecast that's tied to corporate strategy and a plan that remains current and relevant. With Prophix CPM, you get the right balance between simplicity and depth of functionality, and you instantly address the reasons that are hindering progression. Prophix has flexible and robust functionality and a comprehensive unified solution to meet the needs of your organization now and into the future. And with the ability to configure Prophix to your unique business model, needs, and requirements, Prophix does create a model for success for everyone. By starting with your key challenge pain area, forecasting, in this example, expand when you choose with no additional product to purchase. And with complete access to all data, Prophix becomes the flexible, adaptable, and scalable solution you and your business can rely on. I will now hand it over to Mark Barr, our Prophix Customer Stories Manager.
Thanks, Nicole. Hello, folks. I am Mark Bahar, Prophix's Customer Stories Manager. I'm in charge of tracking our customers' uses of our software and profiling the more interesting use cases. I'd like to introduce now an example of forecasting functionality used in Prophix to benefit a customer's business. And I'll explain, as Nicole touched on, how CPM software can have a major predictive function that can be extremely valuable for businesses. Jackson Hole Mountain Resort is a world-class ski destination on the border of Grand Teton National Park in Teton Village, Wyoming. They're open in the winter and in the summer, and I mention that because it relates to their forecasting. Jackson Hole's revenue comes from a variety of sources: lift tickets, retail sales, sports equipment rentals, food and beverage, lessons, and lodging rentals. They're less than 1 year into using the software, but they've seen a dramatic impact from using Prophix to easily and dynamically budget based on historical averages forecasted into future time periods. Budgeting based on a forecast built on their performance in prior years gives Jackson Hole a greater margin for error. Why? It's because so much of their business is based on circumstances beyond their control, like weather changes, cost of travel, and consumer confidence. Not surprisingly, more guests visit when they have lots of snow on the ground during winter, but obviously it's hard to plan for Mother Nature. As a result, Jackson Hole can more accurately predict their cash flow throughout the months. And that's worth calling out because cash flow planning is an important function in Prophix and in CPM software generally. Trusting their planning for revenue and expenses each month means they can meet financial obligations and operate more efficiently. Let's take a closer look at how forecasting revenue works in Prophix. Jackson Hole tracks how many people visit their mountain each season. For instance, they had 546,000 visitors last winter. They had 140,000 visitors in the summer. They use this data, and I mean the number of expected visitors, to drive their revenue planning. They want to know which months people will visit, they want to know how many lift tickets they'll purchase, and how much they'll spend on retail, food and beverage, and lessons. Their marketing department pulls the demographics of their visitors, their age, sex, income levels, and where they're from. One way that helps: their marketing team can design specific campaigns for specific regions at specific times of the year, all based on Jackson Hole's expected number of visitors from different geographical locations. Jackson Hole also works with their community to make sure they have enough airline seats in their region to support the expected number of visitors to the resort. Now, how does that predictive function work in Prophix? Prophix has enabled Jackson Hole to create a template that looks at skier visits, tracking customers who use a ski lift over the past 5 years. That's because ski lift tickets are really the main function that determines who will be using the resort and how much people are using the resort across various functions. Using that template, Prophix then generates expected traffic for each day in the coming year. Jackson Hole uses this forecasted data to plan for every source of revenue in their budget, and then those results cascade back out, and they know what amounts of visitors, revenue, and expenses to expect each month. With Prophix, they now have a first-class forecast and a more accurate budget than ever before. They can also make related decisions with their forecasted data about expected skier visits. For instance, using data from expected skier visits enables them to decide how many chefs, waiters, and caterers they need in each of their 10 restaurants, how many ski instructors they need to serve their guests, and how and where they'll spend their marketing dollars. As a result of the unique solution that they've built, what-if analysis is becoming very valuable to them. They're able to answer and ask, obviously, questions like, if we have a year with low snowfall, how would that affect our bottom line? If we can't find appropriate numbers of employees to staff the resort, which areas could we close or operate with less staff at the lowest impact? As you might imagine, the predictive function that CPM software offers to the finance team at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort gives them more of a strategic role than they've had in the past, and that's a significant development for their business.
Thanks, Mark. That was a very insightful story. Great information. This now concludes the Prophix Forecasting Coffee Talk. Thank you very much for your time today. To learn more about Prophix's software and the product's full suite of capabilities, please register for a live in-depth webinar. Thank you for your time today.